So Battlefield 2042 had its 2-year birthday just now on the 12th of November. That was the day that Battlefield 2042 launched in early access to a flood of negative critique and reviews. But it's fair to say that the team at DICE have had a good go at fixing up the game. Have they done enough to redeem the game in your eyes? I suppose that's a question each and every one of us have to ask ourselves, but as we look forwards here, where is the game going now, and what does the future of Battlefield hold? Guys, if you enjoy the content here on the channel, hit the subscribe button. We're not far off 50,000 subs, which is absolutely crazy. Also, join the Discord, follow me on Twitter, etc. Oh, also, as some of you may know, I've been recently streaming on Twitch 3 days a week. Twitch have now granted us permission to multi-stream on various platforms, so I think I'm going to try out streaming here on YouTube as well, see how that goes, dip my feet in the water, so to speak. So I hope to see some of you guys live here as well. So as I mentioned, DICE have really overhauled a lot of the game. They've implemented a class system as best they could given the specialist framework that they had to work with. They've redone all of the base maps in the game. The UI has seen a lot of improvements as well on all fronts. We've gotten squad management, a scoreboard, there have been a lot of great vehicle changes coming in recently as well, and much more. So it's undeniable the game has come a long way. I think if I went over every negative thing about Battlefield 2042 on launch, we'd be here all week, but perhaps most players' feelings were best summed up by simply saying it doesn't feel like a Battlefield game. That right there is a sentence that I saw many a time, and whilst it is a rather vague thing to say, it's also astonishingly accurate. I think if you're a Battlefield player through and through, you know exactly what that means. And so that, in my opinion, is the overarching problem that DICE had to solve. You know, I've always told people ever since this game launched that if it didn't have the Battlefield name on the box and it was free of that hefty legacy, without excusing all of its flaws, contrary to popular belief, Battlefield 2042 was not the worst game in existence. But you know what? That is the case. This is a Battlefield game, and like it or not, it will be held up and judged against its predecessors. So, does it feel like a Battlefield game now then? As I said, that is up to you guys to decide for each and every one of you. I also think that first impressions matter a lot, and for many people, they will never ever go back to the game, no matter what DICE do, but for me, I would say yes. I really think that DICE have done the right thing here. On the whole, they have listened to the community, and they've tried to fulfill our wishes wherever possible. They've definitely stumbled along the way. That whole debacle with the squad management system and them not adding the kick feature, which obviously created a whole shitstorm of negativity all of its own, could have easily been avoided had they simply listened to what their players wanted. I get it, they don't want to relinquish all of their creative control to their players, and they have higher ups at EA saying you must do this and you must do that, but I hope that some valuable lessons were learnt there. I know I did. Luckily for DICE, all of these improvements seem to have paid off and culminated in a record amount of players playing and buying their game. So I don't think you can really deny that the turnaround has been a pretty big success story. However, whilst this is feeling more like a Battlefield game here, it is still far from being one of the best Battlefield games for me. I think the infantry play and the movement is actually some of my favourite in the entire series, but it's still very lacking in other departments. The vehicle movement and skill requirement cannot hold a candle to that of Battlefield 4's vehicles. The artwork, graphics, and the atmosphere is nothing compared to Battlefield 1, and the destruction is very bare bones compared to previous titles as well. Now, regardless of what you think about all of that, I think we can all agree that the game is heading in the right direction. Question is, what direction is that exactly? Season 6 is already starting to look pretty thin here, and we don't know a thing about the future of the game. Today, the mid-season event comes to an end, and that was really the last piece of upcoming content that we know of. Typically, in past seasons, we would have had new mid-season content like a map rework or some new vault weapons coming, or at the very least, the next season to look forward to. But as it stands, all we know is that we'll see an update 6.2, most likely containing some further vehicle tweaks and some balance changes, etc. Maybe we'll see a 6.3, maybe not. And as for seasons 7 and 8, well, that's anybody's guess. It's just that awkward time that, to me at least, is almost palpable in the community. Whether you're a player or you're a content creator, there's this feeling of the unknown and like, what is going on? Is the game getting cancelled? Are we getting more content? Say something, DICE. Last week we had pretty much no news from DICE, so this week I'm expecting at least some news, if not an update, and I think if they are planning to further support the game with a Season 7 and possibly a Season 8 as well, they should announce that sooner rather than later. A lot of people think that the increase in player numbers could encourage DICE to double down on the game and make even more content, and that could be true if they had already planned for a Season 8 regardless. However, if they had no intention of doing any more seasons anyway, well, those things take time to make. Many of the developers would have been told to move on to other projects and etc. So I'm not sure that the increased player count necessarily means more content. I think the best case scenario is this. Season 6 concludes in January next year. So then we get a Season 7 that runs until March or April, followed by a Season 8 that runs into the summertime to round out a full second year of content, and that'll be it. I think anything beyond Season 8 is extremely unlikely, and then we'll see the next Battlefield game launch in October or November, when DICE generally likes to release their games in the year of 2025, giving us that 1 year Battlefield drought that we've all come to know and hate. Now alternatively, they could surprise us all and release a game in 2024. This would actually tie in perfectly with Season 8 ending during the summer of next year. They could start teasing the new game at that point and getting us all excited for the winter release. However, if this would be the next mainline Battlefield game from DICE Stockholm, and they've developed it in such a short period of time, then that would actually make me very worried indeed. But as we all know, DICE have multiple studios working on multiple projects for the Battlefield universe, so what we might see is actually a release of whatever ripple effect they've been working on next year, and then DICE Stockholm and Co will release their main entry into the series in 2025 or maybe even 2026, depending on what we get in 2024. Now, whatever they release though, DICE needs to bring back some of the core pillars that made Battlefield the franchise it is today, or at least the franchise that it used to be, such as the class system, a server browser, better vehicle mechanics, a higher skill ceiling, and more maps. Their recent additions to the game, I think they go to show that DICE do seem to understand what we want from a Battlefield game. The question is just, are they going to listen to us or not? And to finish the video off here, I want to quote another video that I saw the other day called Battlefield 2042 2 years later, and this is by a channel called Pro Reborn, and this just really hits the nail on the head for me. I couldn't say it better myself, so I'll link it below if you haven't watched it. It's well worth the time. But he had this to say: I believe that the most important aspect DICE could give us with its next title is transparency. I want to see that fans and content creators of 2042, regardless of if they were heavily critical of the game or not, are involved with the next title to some capacity. We can't have another title where fans are left out until the damage has been done. We can't have another title solely driven by profits in sacrifice of the principles that made this franchise what it is. DICE is at a low point and truly only has one more shot to bring back the glory of Battlefield. And while this game will be remembered by many as a failure on a technical scale comparable to Cyberpunk 2077, it will also be remembered by few as an attempt to fix a game corroded by predatory business practices. While I can understand the feelings of betrayal and abandonment on our financial purchases of 2042, I can't help but wonder, is this truly the end of Battlefield as we know it, or is it an important failure on the journey to another golden era? And like I said guys, I couldn't say it better myself, but I'm sure you guys have your own opinions on this matter, so leave your thoughts down below, leave a like if you enjoyed the video today, subscribe for more Battlefield, and I'll see you guys in the next one.